All right, boys, football is officially back. And if you guys remember last year, I was the fucking Prize Picks champ. We're running it back again this year. Last year, I won $100,000 and gave some money to you guys. This year, we're gonna run it back. But yeah, boys, football is officially back. We couldn't be more fired up. Prize Picks has got you on the best deal for the start of the season. All you gotta do, download the app and plug in code NELK, put in just $5, and you're gonna get $50 free. No strings attached, it's that easy. I've tried every single app when it comes to firing on sports, and Prize Picks is by far the best. It makes watching the game so much fun. And if you guys are smart with sports and you know what players are gonna perform on what nights, this is a no-brainer for you guys. Download the Prize Picks app, try it out. It is way different than a lot of other apps. Download it, take advantage of this deal. This is the sweetest deal, $5 for $50 free with code NELK. Take advantage of that, that's for you boys. Also boys, all September long, Caleb Williams is pretty much a free square. He just has to get 0.5 more. So add that into any of your picks. It's just gonna boost your entire pick. We're firing all season long. Let's go, boys. Boys, I know a lot of you guys are thinking like me. You're seeing what's happening in this country. Everything's just getting really, really weird. You got men playing in women's sports. The border's wide open. This election might be the most important election in US history. I know you guys feel the same way. That's why we're teaming up with sendthevote.com to make sure that everybody votes. Sendthevote.com is neither left or right. It's about making sure that everybody votes. And when you vote, we're making sure that your vote is actually counted. We can't just be tweeting and posting about all this stuff, guys. Everybody's voice has to be heard this election. You guys need to get up off your and actually vote. If you know somebody that's not registered to vote, wake them up because everybody needs to vote. So guys, go to sendthevote.com if you're not registered or you don't know how to vote. Seriously guys, this is our last chance. I know you guys feel the same way as me. Sendthevote.com. Make sure your vote is counted.
All right, Full Send Podcast. We're back. Big episode today, RFK.
I love it.
I'm pumped for this one.
I'm most hyped he's at gym, bro. It's my favorite part.
Some you get pumped for and then some you're just like not that excited for.
I'm excited for everybody.
Are you?
Yeah.
No, you're not, bro.
What? Yeah,
That's a lie.
Bro, you look like your cat died in the lobby just now.
Yeah.
Steiny walks in, just head down.
Today.
Bro,
Why?
every time you pull up to a pod, I feel like you just woke up.
Why? What's wrong? How's it been?
I don't know. I had action on the Ravens last night. They lost by that. Do you see the end of the game?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
So what, was that not in?
No, it was out.
How?
His toe was on the line.
Oh my god.
It didn't seem like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Hold on, how much action?
Couple thousand.
Oh, whatever, you're good.
Your Prize Picks hit though too, no?
Yeah, 15,000 Prize Picks.
Mine didn't.
I literally gave the
Yo,
lock
boys,
of the
let's
year.
go on Go Puff.
Oh
You
my
still on
God,
Prize Picks,
bro.
Brad, too?
Sorry,
Yeah.
man. Hi, yo, Go Puff. Just
Go Puff, Happy Dads.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
Thanks, bro.
can I have one though?
Maybe send you back to work.
Best place to get Happy Dads.
Code, man. The delivery code.
Damn, Go Puff's fast as hell.
It's actually cold? Let me see.
Yes, code.
You're gonna have one?
I'll take a sip.
You know who would be a good match for Gabe? Like who I could see him dating is that Harry Sison. Looks like his.
Oh my god.
Does that not look like his type?
That's crazy.
Wait, you don't think so?
The Democrat kid.
Who?
He's this Democrat kid. He looks like he's like 16, but he's 23, so it's okay. Harry Sison. You know who I'm talking about?
Even the guy that was on your pod yesterday. I like him.
Wait, you talking about
Josh
Toby?
Richards?
Yeah, you have no chance with that guy.
What the?
I'm kidding. No, I'm sorry.
Guy's dating a different type of Brazilian, you know? I think he's better with that Brazilian.
Yeah. Jesus, yeah.
So how's Florida been?
It's been dope.
I'm gonna be out there soon. I can't wait.
When's your gym open?
It'd be the first quarter of the new year.
Nice.
And then I'm gonna move out there too.
What's the
What's good?
What's
Josh,
the
is
joining
Josh
fee look like?
Richards an op now or what? After
Oh, I was just around. What, did you watch that?
I did, yeah.
It was funny, right?
Yeah, it was funny.
I was just pressing him a little bit. He's a cool kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's hopefully not an op. What's the gym membership look like
Probably the same as one out here, 125.
to join?
Yeah.
And then a month, 125?
Yeah.
Pretty cheap.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Nice.
Day
We're excited to
pass
be. I'm gonna join. You probably won't
Day,
go though.
day passes are like a down payment on a house though, but
nah, Day Pass.
Day pass 250.
No, that's crazy.
Brad's the day pass master.
Well,
Yeah.
bro, it's just like so many people
But it's
come
true.
there.
It's like a travel attraction.
Yeah, people go there to like meet people and make content and train. You know, so
I'm actually excited for that new gym.
I can't wait, bro. 20 something thousand square feet. It's gonna be beautiful. And also, I just can't wait to go to Florida.
Yeah.
I'm finally
So
ready
how
to
long
get
you
the
gonna
fuck
post
out
up
of-
there for? You think?
For sure, more than half the year, so I can do the tax
Really?
thing. Yeah, especially when it first opens, I'll be there for at least 6 months.
That's sick.
I'm really excited, and I'm just like tired of. I hate to say
You think
this.
you'll post up there in the winter at all, Steiny?
No.
L.A.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like California too much.
Yeah.
Really?
Besides Gavin Newsom destroying the entire city, it is the best. It's the best state by far.
How's it been like being back here and shit?
Good, dude. I haven't drank. I quit partying. I've been celibate for like 30 days, and so just been kind of.
Have you actually? Are you
Yeah.
camping?
No, I swear.
You haven't in 30 days. You're lying.
I swear to God. Besides last night, and it was an ex-girlfriend, so it doesn't count. That doesn't
What?
count. It
So
was an
that's-
ex. It was
That's
a repeat.
true. That
it was a
doesn't count.
repeat.
Exes don't
And
count.
so there
for
was no
celibacy.
drinking involved. But other than that, it's been 30 days.
I agree with that.
Wait, so but it hasn't been 30 days because you had sex
But
last
that doesn't
night.
count
No,
because
but
it's
it
a
was an
repeat and
ex.
it's an ex-girl, so it was sober.
But you still have physically had sex.
Yes, but what I'm saying is I haven't been chasing and being
It's
a
a
fool.
technicality.
Yeah.
And
So you're
celibacy
still
fine print.
in it
Yeah.
where celibacy is not real in that situation.
Bro, just forget about it.
Okay, I'll forget
Anyway,
about
I've been more focused on myself and just doing.
Was
shit
that
like
did you text yourself, by the way, the other day, like to make that whole story?
Oh, that happened too.
Was that real?
Yes. How crazy is that?
Explain that.
I
Dude,
swear
this
you
girl
text
I've been
yourself.
like trying to like go out with for like 2 or 3 years. We just will text each other, and she's like, "Hey, we should go out." And then she texted me, and I was all excited. I was going on a double date, her and her friend, me and one of my friends, and I was at the gym right before, and she texted me, and she said, "Hey, I had a reevaluation, and I don't think we should go out, so I'm gonna cancel tonight, and like good luck."
Wow.
Yeah.
Do I know?
And then
do
I hit a
know her
and then
off
I hit
camera or no?
I hit a PR on bench press right after that. I swear.
I thought you said you were just at the gym and you left.
No, I got the text while I was at the gym.
Oh, okay.
I started pacing around, freaking out, and then I hit a PR, and then
What, plate in a 5?
25. Playing
nice.
at 25. No spot. I just risked it.
That's I feel that.
that's sick,
I feel
right?
that. I feel that. Yeah.
So yeah, that hurt a little bit.
What girl is it? Do I know her off camera or no?
No, she's a smoke. But she's religious. I've been trying to go into that path. Yeah, which I
What
don't
do you
think
mean
is
that
good
That's
for
the
me.
thing. Instagram's kind of like a dating profile too, right? In
Bro,
a way,
it's a-
like you gotta
it's a-
do what gets views, but Steiny, you gotta keep in the back.
I gotta
of your
hide
mind,
all my posts.
It's kind of like your Tinder profile as well.
I
Like when
know.
girls come to your profile, it's a reflection of you. And like when they see your gram with the with the day in the lives now, people believe everything they see on
I
social
know.
media. So it's like they probably actually think that you're doing that.
Yeah, I know. That whole situation really got me.
But you don't want a girl that's that dumb anyway, if she can't tell the difference.
That's what I was saying. And it's like, dude, that's how I make a living. You know? They want to have that lifestyle, but they don't want you to, put in the work.
They don't want you to put the work in.
Yeah. You have a huge booger on your right nose.
I thought he's got that off.
No.
What the?
Throw that shit over that way, not here.
I'm about to throw it. I'm about to wipe this shit on you, bro. Is it still there?
What's new with you, dude? Have you slapped any kids recently or done anything like that? Or what?
No slapping kids, man. Those days are done, man. Give those days.
At least you got that one out of you.
the slap with the kid.
Yeah. How
Nah,
good did that
bro.
feel to get it out one time?
Bro, I didn't. It wasn't even a thing like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, me and Ron are cool, for sure.
Yeah.
I was thinking that for a video. How many Nelk boys do you think, if it was just a wrestling match, like just grappling,
Which, like, of all these guys,
like let's say me, Steiny, Steve, and Salim, for us to tap you out,
I'm going like full force.
but no punching, just grappling. Yeah, full force grappling.
I would get tired, but like it would take you
I
guys.
think all four of us could take him.
No,
Yeah.
it would take all four. Of
I was
you
thinking
for
that would
little
be a
bit.
good short video.
I'll do it,
I'll do
Me,
it.
Steve, Steiny, and
but
Salim.
it's gonna be a little. I'm not gonna hit you.
No, just no. It's grappling, no punching. You
Yeah.
could throw us.
Yeah,
It's grappling.
but you might catch like a shoulder or something. Someone might.
Well, we're gonna abide by
Okay.
the rules of grappling.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm down. That sounds fun as.
Let's do it.
Oh,
How's
look
it
who it
going?
is.
Great to meet you, Kyle.
Hey,
Nice to meet you.
Bradley. This is your product.
Yes. This and this.
You want me to try it out? Sure. Give you an assessment.
Yeah, you can.
We had a cameraman on this campaign who almost died from eating beef jerky.
Really? What?
He got some impacted in his molar, and he didn't know it, and it got severely infected. He started getting a headache, and
he wasn't
ultimately
aware.
went to the hospital, and he had sepsis and literally almost died.
Oh wow.
Not from board jerky.
Dental health is super important, man. People forget that.
This is beef
Yep.
as opposed to buffalo or something.
Yeah.
It was very spicy.
That's,
Oh, you had
Oh,
you're
you got
gonna
the
need some
spicy
water, my
flavor?
friend.
What?
You're gonna need some water in a second, for real. It's pretty hot.
Yeah, it's hot.
It's spicy flavor.
At least it's spicy.
I like it.
All right, boys, since RFK is trying it, I want to tell you guys about my favorite healthy snack, board jerky. You guys see me, I'm trying to look good, stay in shape. I got sick of all the comments saying I look pregnant, so I'm always looking for healthy snacks, and board jerky is my go-to. I have this in my backpack whenever I travel. I love board jerky, and this is literally the best board jerky I have ever tried. Try it for yourself if you don't believe me. It's the best quality board jerky. The original flavor is my favorite because the macros are fire, the carbs are decent, the sugars are low, and it's high in protein. There's almost like 40 grams of protein in this bag. I also love this spicy one too. This shit's hot. I love it. I'm always snacking on this when I travel. This is my absolute go-to. It's available on Amazon right now. It's the best board jerky. Try it out for yourself if you don't believe me. It's on Amazon.com. The link is in the description. Board jerky, my favorite healthy snack. Thank me later, boys.
It's got a lot of seed oil in it though. I'm joking.
Oh, here we go.
I'm joking.
I'm glad I do want to talk about that.
No, I know we're gonna get into it all.
Yeah.
So how's things been recently since I know the transition to kind of endorsing Trump? How's everything been like post kind of going that angle?
You know, my campaign hasn't changed that much because I'm still on the road. I got 3 days off. I went with Cheryl down to Mexico for 3 days, kind of off. And that was the first day off I had in almost 17 months.
Wow.
And that felt good. But I've been back on the campaign trail since then. I'm just, now I'm working to get Donald Trump in office, which is something if you had asked me a year ago whether that would ever happen, I would have said
No way.
no way.
Why did that change so drastically?
Well, I gave a long speech about why that changed. That kind of traced my evolution, and it's hard to summarize it, but basically, I saw that the Democratic Party that I grew up with has disappeared. And, I grew up with a Democratic Party that was anti-war. It was really resistant to the domination of our government by the military-industrial complex and by other, corporate interests and large aggregations of economic power. It was on the side of the American middle class, the cops, firefighters, labor, small, Main Street businesses. It was opposed directly to Wall Street. It was on the side of civil rights and particularly constitutional rights, and most importantly, the First Amendment and freedom of expression. It was utterly antithetical to censorship. In fact, the word liberal was derived from a term meaning freedom of speech and free discourse, and all of those, and then it was opposed to anything that would toxics in the environment, anything that would harm children or vulnerable populations. Today, it's inversed all of that. It's now become the party of war. It's Vice President Harris's speech at the Democratic Convention was extremely bellicose. She was preceded, and I was shocked at this. On the stand, they let a former CIA director speak at the Democratic Convention. That would have never happened in the Democratic Party that I grew up with. They had a bunch of military leaders talking, who were, military contractors, essentially. They had, and it's become the party of Wall Street, become the party of big tech, big ag, big data, big pharma, and it's become the party of censorship. And if you look at what happened in 2020, and this is a really good, sort of a good indicator, President Trump in 2020 got approximately 50% of the American public voting for him. President Biden got 50%, but the 50% that President Biden got owned 70% of the wealth in this country. The 50% that President Trump got owned 30% of the wealth. So you've had this inversion where the Democratic Party has now become the party of the wealthy and of big economic interests, financial interests, and the Republican Party has become the party of the poor. And that's a direct inversion of the situation that I grew up with. And then finally, it also has become extraordinarily anti-democratic. when I grew up, my father and uncle were fighting for voting rights to make sure that every American could vote for the candidate that they wanted to vote for, whoever you were. But today's Democratic Party there's no democracy left. I mean, we had the abolition of all of the primaries, essentially. They got rid of the primaries to make sure that I couldn't run against Joe Biden. And in order to conceal the cognitive deficits that he had, which he could not, which would be revealed and were revealed ultimately as soon as he debated. And then when there was essentially a palace coup against him, he was replaced not by any kind of election, but he is essentially his successor, Vice President Harris, was essentially chosen by an oligarchy of elites who we don't even know who they are. We have no idea how that process happened. And suddenly, without winning a single primary, without winning a single vote, we were told she's the only choice. I remember about 2 months ago, President Biden and Vice President Harris were ridiculing Vladimir Putin because he won his election with 88% of the vote. And they said, yeah, he only did that because he got rid of all of his opponents so he didn't have to run against anybody. And he controls the media in this country. Well, the Democratic Party is in the exact position now. When Ross Perot ran, he won. He had 34 interviews in 10 months on mainstream media. In the 17 months I was running, I had only 2 live interviews on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and MSNBC. So those networks are now controlled by the DNC, and they're all talking off of talking points that are given to them by the DNC, and they would not allow me to talk to their audiences, and then they conspired with the DNC to keep me off the debating stage. Oh, these are not the indicia of a robust democracy. They're really, it's a party that is fundamentally anti-democratic.
How did they get away with that? Like, what was their reasoning for not having a proper primary? Like, how did they legally get away with that?
I mean, they got away with it because there's no indignation in the press. They were able to. Normally, you'd have a media that would say, wait a minute.
There'd be an outroar.
The president has to come out of the basement, out of the bunker, and talk to us. And they'd be outraged about it, and they wouldn't let him get away with it. And then when he canceled the Florida primary, they made a rule in order to get rid of me because I was going into New Hampshire and I was doing really well in New Hampshire. And that, that's the bellwether primary. It's the first primary. And it is the bellwether historically for what's going to happen in the other primaries. And that's the primary that in 1968, when my dad ran, Eugene McCarthy won, I think, 40%. He didn't win it, but he won enough that he embarrassed the sitting president, and Johnson had to resign. And I was in the same situation where I was running up big scores in the polls. So they made a rule that said that any candidate who steps foot into the state of New Hampshire, which I had already done, that anybody who voted for them, that their votes would go to President Biden. They made that rule, and we were sitting there saying, they're not going to get away with this. People will be outraged, but there was not a ripple. It was all, okay, we're okay with that.
Wasn't the same thing with like trying to keep your name on the ballot in the states that you were you were in, and they weren't trying to remove them until recently they just
they pivoted now.
Yeah,
they were trying to. I had to get it. I had to do. They rigged the system to keep independent candidates off the ballot. So they didn't, after Ross Perot ran, they rewrote all the rules to make it. He only had to get 300,000 votes. He was on every ballot, and they all had kind of uniform rules, and it was pretty straightforward. You just had to get the petitions out there. I had to get 1 million votes, and actually more than 1 million votes. And they had made it almost insurmountable in some of the states where you had to get, I had to get 47,000 votes in 5 weeks in New York. But we went and did it. And in New York, we got 150,000 votes, signatures. And we got 1 million nationwide. We did what everybody said that could never be done. And the DNC then began suing us state by state, not because they thought they could win the suits, because they couldn't. Our signatures, we got 2 to 3 times the number of signatures that we needed, so they knew they weren't going to win. But they were trying to bleed us white to make sure that, all of our money was being spent on litigation and that we couldn't get our message out. So I had to spend
That's
about
insane.
$15 million on litigation. And for us, that's huge because they also wrote the rules that say that they can get, each donor can give them $750,000, maximum contribution. Each donor can only give me $6,600. So I had to, they were raising billions and we were raising, we raised a huge amount of money. We raised between my campaign and the super PAC, we probably raised about $150 million. We had to do it in $6,600 increments, and they were doing it in $750,000 increments. So more than 10 times per donor what we could get. Then they didn't give me Secret Service, and that was costing me almost $1 million a month to do my, pay for my own security, because you got to buy them airplane tickets, you got to put them in the hotels, and I was traveling every day. And so they were weaponizing the institutions of government and their control of the system to do everything they could to make sure that I couldn't get on the ballot. And by the end, so that was part of the reason. And then the other reason that President Trump, I don't want to dominate this conversation because I know you guys are really entertaining.
No, go ahead.
We came to listen. We came to listen to you.
But what happened was, it became clear to me that if I stayed in the race, that I was going to get Kamala Harris elected, because about 57 to 60% of my voters, if I dropped out, were going to vote for Trump. So I was taking away Trump voters, and in the battleground states, I was taking, I was getting, depending on what time it was, but between 5% and 20%. But even if I only got 3%, I would flip the election because the margins in those states are, 1%.
Is that unprecedented as an independent?
Yeah,
like your numbers are what you were getting?
What was unprecedented is if you put all the polls that put me in a head-to-head race with either candidate, with just me against them, I beat Biden 39 states to 11. So if it was just me against Biden, I would run the table. And when I ran against Trump, I beat him by 14 points. If it was just me against Trump, so that's never happened before. But when we ran 3 of us, my support went down to double digits or single digits because people were voting out of fear. They were saying, oh, if I vote for Kennedy, then, Trump's going to get elected. Or if I vote for Kennedy, Biden's going to get elected. And it's going to be the end of the republic. But I was still getting enough votes that I was going to change the election results. And I was going to get Kamala Harris. And I have a lot of fear about Kamala Harris being in the White House because I don't think that she's capable of standing up to the military-industrial complex. And I think I also just don't think we should have a president of the United States that can't do an unscripted interview, that cannot talk to the press.
That's crazy. What'd you
Also
think of the
really
CNN
crazy.
interview? The CNN interview, they didn't even release it, right?
Interview, I
Wasn't even live.
First of all, it was a softball interview. And CNN somehow edited it, and my understanding is they won't reveal the parts that they cut out, that they cut it down from, I think, 40 minutes to 18 minutes. And they won't show us what happened in the rest of it. But I mean, I just want, look, I do probably on average about 7 interviews a day, and I do them, they're not, they're with unfriendly reporters. They're not scripted. I don't know what's going to say, what people are going to ask me. I welcome any kind of questions. President Trump does the same thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, you want a leader that can articulate a vision for this country, that can articulate it for us, for the American people, that can inspire us with that vision, that can defend our country and our interests to foreign leaders. Somebody who is articulate, who's committed to something. And then you can disagree with what they say, but you can disagree with Trump. And you can find all kinds of errors and you know, and horrors in the things he says, but at least he's going out there and he has confidence and he has a vision.
Yeah.
And to elect somebody who is, you know, and I don't want to be harsh towards her because I don't want to feed into the vitriol, but I find it astonishing that you would have somebody who's been in public life their entire life and they do not have the confidence, or their handlers don't have the confidence to put them in front of a camera with an unscripted event. That to me is shocking. And I don't think, I think the rest of the world is looking at this and saying, what has happened to America?
Well, yeah, it all just feels like a show. I mean, did you see where
It feels like a show.
Exactly.
It feels like somebody
fake.
else is managing it.
Exactly. Like there's a producer, say this, do that. And that's the sad part about it too. Did you see when she stood up and she talked about there needs to be repercussions for social media sites that post this sort of content? It's like
Astonishing.
where the fuck are we going?
When was that?
Yes.
And what was she referring to?
She was referring to Elon Musk and Twitter and being like, basically like, we need to like have
Censor.
grounds.
Shut down the only
essentially-
free speech
she
platform
said,
left.
she actually said that Elon Musk was going to lose his privileges, right? Like free speech is a privilege now instead of a right, right? It's something that the government, and that it's the government's job to decide what misinformation and disinformation
And that's insane considering what just happened with the whole COVID thing. It's like, and Mark coming out and saying I was getting pressured to do this and I did this and I censored it. It's like, how are people hearing that and going like, this is the leader we want, the person who's going to make sure there's no discourse around anything that they don't want discourse around. Like, how can we have a world where we go,
I
this is
think
the
a lot of
United
people
States.
just don't believe that like a president can be a puppet. Like to me, Kamala Harris is just clearly like a puppet. Like she's not running the show. But I think a lot of people like trust the government and they don't want to admit that their government might not have their best interests at hand.
Yeah, I didn't want to use, any kind of pejoratives or, or like puppet or useful idiot or anything like that to describe her. But it's hard to, if you can't tell people who you are, then what, who are we voting for? We're voting, and if you talk to Democrats, and I have many friends who are Democrats who, who are horrified by me, supporting Trump. And I say, well, you don't even know who you're voting for here. You have no idea what policies she's supporting. You have no idea who this person is. And what it comes down to is they say, well, we're voting for the apparatus. We're not really voting for the person. We trust the Democratic Party apparatus. And there's so many problems with that concept, that in a democracy you're voting for. And by the way, the apparatus has not performed that well. The apparatus, has let in 10 billion people across the border, and we've got the highest inflation, and we're in wars. We've sent almost 200 billion to Ukraine, and it's and you have now 60% of Americans can't put their hands on $500 if they have an emergency in their family.
Like, do you think that this is ever going to change, this printing of money and the ruining of the money that we actually earn? Because like they take all our money in taxes and then they send it over places, or they print money and they send it over places. And then do you think they're ever going to make the government more efficient? Like, is that actually something that's going to happen? Or is it just like all smoke and mirrors? So they just say shit that make you think, oh, it's going to be better this year or next year. And it never actually changes. Like for all the people who like watch this stuff and people who are living their normal lives, like it just feels like it's only gotten worse over time. Yeah. Unless you're in like the higher earners and you could earn it because of the sort of conflict or the shit that's going on in the world. Most normal people are just like, how do I even stay afloat? And it's just like, if we vote for you or if we vote for Trump or if we vote for Kamala, like, is the government ever going to get its shit together, or do they not give a fuck? And it's just like, well, we can keep people in this conflict and we can just keep making more and more money and send money here and lobbyists here. And the military industrial complex can make more money here? Is it ever actually going to change?
Theoretically, you can change it. I feel like if I had been president, that I would change it. I think that some of the things that President Trump is talking about could actually change that system. But I think you're right. There's so many kind of built-in perverse incentives because you're electing people who are in this incredible situation where they can spend money without any accountability, and spending that money and printing that money keeps them in office. It used to be that if a leader was going to start a war, declare war, they'd go to Congress, and Congress would decide on it, and then they would fund it. And funding a war, you have to go to the public and say, we're going to raise your taxes in order to find weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, or, in order to go to Ukraine, which most of you have never heard of and couldn't find on a map. And you're not going to be able to send your kid to his greatest school. You're not going to have money in your retirement account, but it's worth it. And they'd need to sell us on that, or they'd need us to buy war bonds to fund it. None of that has to happen anymore. Right now, there was no war declared in Ukraine, even though we're at war with Russia right now. They just printed 160 billion now that we've sent there. And they're sending it there with, congressional votes. And all those Congress people who are voting for it, Mitch McConnell, et cetera, are all in the tank with General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Lockheed, all of the military industrial complex mind of the contractors that are all making the money. That money is going to the most corrupt country in the world, and they take a cut. But most of it is going right back to these military contractors. All of those military contractors are owned by BlackRock. And BlackRock is, then donates to the Republican Party and Democrat Party. And they have the contract to destroy Ukraine, and they also have the contract for rebuilding it.
Is the military industrial complex, like when we talk about big pharma and you talk about the food and stuff, is the military industrial complex, are they the biggest puller of strings when it comes to corruption like this?
I would say that, and the pharmaceutical industry, but the military industrial complex also includes the pharmaceutical industry, because so much of the medical cartel is tied to the military. Almost the vaccine program, all of these, the Public Health Service, which is essentially the CDC, is one of the 5 uniform military services. So that's why you have, people over there with military ranks like Surgeon General that wear uniforms, because it's a military agency, and a lot of
the CDC is
the Public Health Service, which is the parent organization for CDC, is one of the 5 uniform military services. Okay. And a lot of the programs, particularly the vaccine program, came out of the military. The vaccine program was created. NIH came out of the Navy, out of the Naval Lab, but it was created as a national security defense against biological attacks on our country. So they wanted to make sure that if the Russians attacked us with anthrax or some other biological agent, that they could quickly formulate a vaccine and then deploy it to 200 million Americans with no regulatory impediments. And so they abolished the need for safety testing because they wanted to do it quickly. And that's one of the problems, that you see throughout. But the biowarfare, bioweapons programs are all tied in with NIH. NIH is managing those. And so there's an integration between the medical cartel and the military and when Eisenhower gave his famous speech on January 17th, 1961, my birthday, I was 6-year-old at that time, and 3 days later I attended my uncle's inauguration in Washington. And Eisenhower gave a farewell speech where he warned Americans against the emergence of a military industrial complex that would destroy our democracy. In it, he included the federal health agencies. And, there's a whole paragraph where he says this includes the the public health agencies and the scientific agencies who are going to weaponize federal science against the American people.
He stated that in his
Yeah,
speech.
go read that.
Wow.
That paragraph. It's right after he talks about the paragraph, the military-industrial complex, and the next paragraph he says, and by the way, this includes the federal science and health agencies, and here's what they're going to do to us. So it's very, very prescient.
I love talking about this shit.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. This is dope.
So if you're elected or Trump's elected, because obviously Kamala doesn't really want to change this, as it seems, how does it actually change when there's so much money being exchanged in hands of those companies? Like, they would just never let it change.
It's so
it seems.
deep.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing that we really need to do in this country, which is to have something the president himself can't do, by decree, or even the Congress can't do. But we need a constitutional amendment that essentially overrules the Citizens United decision. So, you know what Citizens United is?
I do not.
This was a federal court decision. It's really a monumental decision that was made in 2010. And I'll give you a history. In the end of after the Civil War, in the 1880s and 1890s, there was an era that historians call the Gilded Age, and it was when you saw the emergence of these what they call robber barons, the great wealthiest families on earth. John D. Rockefeller, who was the first millionaire on the planet, the Carnegies, the Morgans, the Fricks, the Whitneys, and all of these big families were sitting on interlocking boards that controlled all the industry in our country. So there was a railway trust, there was a steel trust, there was a sugar trust, there was a cotton trust. And these same people were sitting on all of them, and they were calling the shots. And at that time, there was not direct election of senators. The senators were picked by the state legislatures, and the state legislatures were owned lock and stock and barrel by these gentlemen. In fact, it was said about the Pennsylvania state legislature that it was the only legislature that was not for sale, because John D. Rockefeller owned every one of them and he wouldn't sell any of them. And that's how corrupt they were. And they were choosing the senators, and then the senators were controlling the political parties who chose the president. So they controlled everything. And then you had essentially a revolution at the beginning of the 20th century, where you had a guy who was part of the oligarchy, Teddy Roosevelt, come along, who was not scared or intimidated by the oligarchy. And he was tough, he was brave, and he saw what was happening. And then you had a populist movement in the countryside, which was farmers organizing to take back rights, and a progressive movement in the cities, which were Republican reformers who were just good government people. And you had women's movement, and they all came together. And then there were a bunch of muckraking journalists like Ida Tarbell and Upton Sinclair, and they began writing these devastating articles in a magazine called McClure's about taking down the robber barons and exposing them and all. And the public really rose up, elected Teddy Roosevelt president, and they passed all this extraordinary legislation. They got the 5-day work week. They banned child labor. They gave women the vote. They created the first income taxes so that rich people suddenly had to pay their share. They created corporate taxes and graduated income taxes so that the richer you were, the more you had to pay. The most important thing they did is they made it illegal for corporations to donate to federal political candidates. And they restored democracy, because we had lost democracy. America at that point was no longer democracy, and they restored it. We're in the same situation right now. But what happened is almost 100 years, 104 years after that law was passed that banned corporate donations to federal political candidates, a very business-friendly Supreme Court issued a holding that said that donations to political candidate were a form of free speech, and they were therefore protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution. So any effort by the government to stop a corporation from bribing, essentially legalized bribery to political candidates was now illegal. It was unconstitutional. And this unleashed a tsunami of corporate money into the political process. And ever since then, and that, for example, I think that year, the entirety of what was spent on the presidential campaign was about $300 million. Today, that wouldn't buy you a Senate seat in New York. And this presidential campaign, there's been about $15 billion of donations. So, and if you're running for office, like if I ran for Senate in New York, I have to raise $300 million. So the only way I'm going to do that is by sitting in a room all day, which is what candidates do now, and dial millionaires and trade for favors. And ever since that bill has passed, you've seen this systematic shift in wealth upward to the new class that's actually running our country, because the politicians are completely dependent on millionaires and billionaires to fund them. There's 800 families in this country that donate about 70% of that money.
Really?
So
Yeah.
how is this considered democracy?
So it's not. It's
don't
those
get it.
800 people are calling the shots, and and that's why you're getting these policies that are anti-labor and that are systematically shifting wealth upward. And when they shut down our businesses in this country, they shut down during COVID 3.3 million businesses, but they only shut down the smaller businesses,
I
right?
remember.
Main
Get my
Street.
gym open. So.
They left Amazon open.
Yeah.
They closed the churches. They left the liquor stores open. They left.
I remember that.
They left Walmart open. They left Facebook open, and all of those inherited the money from those small American businesses. And 41% of Black-owned businesses will never reopen. So they obliterated the Black economy in this country. It was like Black Wall Street times 1,000. And a lot of those businesses had, 3 or 4 generations of equity in them. They'll never reopen. And who inherited that? Jeff Bezos and Amazon inherited all of that business and wealth. And we all got a 2-year lesson on how to use Amazon. I literally did not know how to use Amazon before that. If I wanted to buy something, I went downtown. And then I had to learn because you couldn't get anything else. And it's so seductive because you just find a picture of something that you like and you swipe and it's in your driveway the next day. So of course it's great. But guess what? I was shopping. I lived in a small town all my life, and if you went into the local sporting goods store in my town, Mount Kisco, New York, he had plaques on his wall from thanks from the local boys club, from the Boy Scouts, and that was the guy that was paying for my kids' hockey uniforms, right? My kids were playing 100 hockey games a year, and that guy paid for their uniforms. He paid for my kids' Little League uniforms. He was hiring my kids in the summer for summer jobs. So he was charging a little more than Amazon, but that money was recirculating in our community and enriching us. And then he paid local taxes. Amazon shut him down. And now Amazon doesn't pay any local taxes anywhere. The question is, do they pay any federal taxes? The answer to that is no. Last year, Amazon paid 0 federal taxes. So you're seeing they're doing this right in front of us. They're just strip mining the wealth from the American middle class, shifting it upward to this new oligarchy of billionaires. And during COVID, they did their shutdowns. They created a billionaire a day in 500 days, 500 new billionaires, and they shifted $4.3 trillion north from the American middle class, which they obliterated, to this new aristocracy that we have. And, that is...
But so if that
That
power
is
is so,
crazy.
the 800 people, and it's so the power is so insurmountable, how do we then pass a law that doesn't let that continue on? Like, how do you make it stop?
I think you need a president who's willing to go in there and who is not part of that system. And I think that's President Trump. And President Trump, I think, tried to do that the last time to drain the swamp. And he was well-intentioned, but he didn't know how to do it. And he said that to me. He said, I didn't know anything about governing. And he said, we won this election, and then all of a sudden you got to fill 60,000 jobs or something like that. And he said, I was surrounded by people, by lobbyists and business interests who were saying, you got to appoint this guy, you got to appoint that guy, and that's what he did. And he brought in Scott Gottlieb, who was a Pfizer business partner, to run the FDA. Gottlieb did a $100 billion favor for Pfizer, and then what did he do? He went back to join Pfizer's board with all the stock, dividends that he got.
Shit.
So it's just a payoff. It's a revolving door payoff. And they brought in a telecommunications lobbyist to run FCC. They brought in oil lobbyists, Ryan Zinke to run the Department of Interior, a coal lobbyist to run the EPA, another pharmaceutical lobbyist, Alex Azar, to run HHS. You go across the board, and all of these agencies were being run, and that's what they all do. That's what they all do. And Trump, the last time, got locked into that, and he told me, I don't want to do that again. He said those were bad guys, and this time we're going to do something different. And he said, last time he brought John Bolton in to run NSA, and he's now understands who the neocons are and and he's anti-war. He wants to end the wars. And he did a pretty good job this last time. There was no, U.S. Combat deaths during his administration. But, I think that he wants to leave a legacy. He's not going to run again. He's a lame duck president. And he wants to do something that's good for this country. And I can help him do that because I have sued all these agencies. I've sued FDA, CDC, NIH. I've sued the FCC. I just won a big case against the FCC in the Court of Appeals for lying to the American public about the dangers of cell phone radiation. And now they have to redo all of those regulations. I've sued the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, and most of the big agricultural producers. Oh, and when you sue these companies, when you sue these agencies, you get a PhD in how corporate capture works and how to unravel it. And, I know how to do that, and he's asked me to help him do that. So if we do that, if he does what he says, I'm very optimistic that we can actually remedy a lot of this corruption.
Yeah.
I have a question I've always wanted to know too, because like you said, it's obvious that wealthy people are kind of like making the policies in this country indirectly, but why are the policies like anti-American too? Whether it be like open borders or like defunding the police, like is it like foreign money that's trying to like destroy like America?
I don't know the answer to that question. The border policy seems so crazy to me.
Like, what's the special interest behind that? Or is that just stupidity?
It's hard to even imagine a rationale for it that is not sinister. But I never speculate about things that I don't have evidence for. So unless I saw the conversation or the documents where people are saying, yeah, let's open the border to help China or, whatever, or to cause chaos in this country, I would never say that. But a lot of really bad government policies that the most parsimonious explanation for them is probably the accurate one, which is just sheer incompetence and disinterest and negligence and neglect. But some of it may be sinister, and I don't blame people who say this has got to be sinister because it's so messed up. And you look at what's happened. I've been down to the border and just seen this, this insanity of people coming through. And then, I watched 300 people come across in Yuma during my first trip down there between 2 o'clock a.m. and 4 o'clock a.m. So I arrived at the border at 2 a.m. and I watched they were coming on white buses that were sleek, shiny, brand new. They were all owned by the Sinaloa drug cartel. And there's 55 people in each bus. The first 2 buses were Africans from West Africa, all young African males, military age. And they all come through. And when I got there, they were coming through and they were being processed. The Border Patrol, and I didn't actually talk to any of them. The next 2 buses that came through were all people from Asia. There was only 2 Latin Americans all night. There was one family from Colombia, one from Peru, and they were the only ones that had asylum claims. I talked to all the other ones, and they all said, we're here to get jobs for the money. So there's no reason to let them in. Because you have to give a hearing to somebody who has an asylum claim. As somebody who openly says, I'm just looking for a job, there's no reason to let them in. But the Biden administration had ordered the Border Patrol let everybody in and stop the catch and return program. It's a catch and release. So the Border Patrol, 9 of them had committed suicide the previous year because they were, what they were being ordered to do is to not do their jobs. And their job was now to process those people as they come through, which means they fingerprint them, check them for a criminal record. If they do not have a criminal record, they bring them to the Yuma airport and put them on a plane to any destination they want in the United States.
With whose money?
Some of them have money coming across. The people were not poverty stricken, right? But a lot of them have been robbed by the cartels. They're charged between $10,000 and $35,000 to come across.
By the cartel.
By the cartel. And the cartel is
Can you explain that to us?
You can go on TikTok and see the advertisements by the cartel.
Holy
What?
shit. Holy shit.
And they're
We might have to
advertising.
stitch that.
They're all over the world. These guys were coming through and they knew exactly what was going to happen to them.
Did you see Kamala use in something about her,
That's
like
crazy.
the Trump's wall in like her new campaign about putting a wall up now after she talked the wall so stupid, all this, and now she's flip-flopping and saying, okay, we're going to have a wall, and she's like using the wall that he actually built as a reference point. Did you see that clip?
I didn't see it, but I
you
heard
know
about
about
it.
the
I was
flip-flop.
astonished, but
Because her job during the whole presidency
that was her big job. That was the job, the most visible job that she had. And then I think she was asked one time, have you ever been to the border? And she said, no, but I think she said, no, but I've never been to Europe either, or something like that.
Does that have to do with
Didn't
anything?
she say
Something
that?
like that, yeah.
Something like that. I don't know exactly what it was, but I don't know. Maybe you guys can dig it up and play that clip.
We are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
But it was, but that's not an answer. Oh, how can? And she was given this very, very visible job right at the beginning of the before all the problems started. So there was a minor problem, but now she was in charge when it became a major problem. And then I'll tell you, and I don't want to dominate this discussion so much, but I'll tell you one of the things that the Border Patrol guys told me. They said, we have been begging Alexander Mayorkas to come down here, and he refused to come and see what's happening. Finally, we got him to come down. And he said, okay, you can build a wall. Because when they came in, there were 27 gaps in the wall. So, and I was against the wall when Trump was talking about it because I was just basically very skeptical of Trump, and I didn't know anything about it. When I went down there, it's clear, you need a wall. You don't need a wall all the way 2,200 miles from Brownsville, Texas to San Diego. But in the major urban areas and cities where somebody can just walk across and disappear immediately, you need a real big physical barrier. And in the countryside, you need fences and sensors and monitoring systems and long-range cameras and night lights and these and the Trump administration had put all that up. There were 27 gaps in the wall. The material was already purchased. It's sitting there. So, and the day that Biden came in, he ordered all construction stopped. So you can go down there today, and I have, photos of it. All of the material for Trump's walls is sitting next to the gaps, those 27 gaps in the wall. There's a big pile of material that costs hundreds of millions of dollars to finish the wall, and they wouldn't do it. So then Mayorkas comes down, sees this flood of humanity coming through the wall, and says to them, okay, we're going to finish the wall, but we're not going to use Trump's materials. We're going to use our own materials. We're going to buy new materials. Oh, you can go down there now and you'll see the Mayorkas wall, the Biden wall, and it is, so there'll be a gap in the Trump wall. The gaps are pretty small. Some of them are like just 100 feet. All they need to do is fill up that gap with the material that's sitting there.
Why do they not do
bought
this?
New material, which is a different color. It's a kind of it looks like almost like chain link. The Trump wall is reddish orange. It's like rusty iron, and it's these big, sturdy barriers. But the Mayorkas / Biden wall, it looks like chain link fence, the color of chain link fence, and it links the wall. So you'll see Trump wall and then a little gap with the Biden wall, but the Biden wall doesn't go into the ground. So the people are going right under it or cutting through it because it's flimsy.
So why do they not care about doing this?
There's got to be some special
I don't
interest
know.
with that,
I mean,
too.
I'd love to put one of these guys under oath and do a deposition with them. And where they
Also,
had to,
why spend millions and millions of more of our dollars on something that was already there?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, what a great.
I mean,
really
that
great.
just seems like petty politics.
It just seems like what the fuck are they doing with all our money all the time? It's just like it's so frustrating as someone who just like lives here. It's like it's not even so much like, oh, no one should ever come in here, but it's like, why the fuck are we constantly having to pay for just like random shit and there's like no rhyme or reason to anything? But there's got to be some reason that we're just not aware of, that like they're letting and allowing this to be the case.
There has to be some
Well,
special interest.
Obviously, the
behind that.
money there is like, well, we can give more money to that company to make this wall. Like, obviously, there's an interest there, but why allow all the people to flow in the way that they've allowed them to flow in and create the circumstances that we're just talking about? Like, it's a problem.
The argument, the liberal argument for it is that our country should be kind and compassionate and allow people in, but it's not. They've created a humanitarian crisis. They're not solving anything. They're creating a humanitarian crisis.
If it was a perfect world.
And by the way, we have an immigration policy, okay, and people are waiting in line. Now, it's far from perfect, and we need to fix it, but it's fixable. And we need to make it easier for immigrants. There is a labor shortage in this country. There are about 9.5 million jobs that small businesses are looking to fill that are not going to be filled by Americans. And you need to bring people in because we need to keep Social Security intact. We need a base of people who are paying taxes and creating things and serving businesses and serving the community. We should be able to pick who they are. We shouldn't leave that to the Mexican drug cartel. And there's a lot of bad people coming across who we don't want in this country, and we ought to be able to say to them, no. Oh, and you have all these people coming across now, and they're given an asylum court date. I watched this happen 7 years in the future. They're told, you come in, check back in with us in 7 years.
But
They're
here,
and nobody knows where they are.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, sure, I'll come.
I'll pull up.
Bro, and also recently you saw the $150,000 incentive to buy homes. It just seems like...
You mean in California?
Yes, in California. It's like, what?
That was insane.
Like, are we giving... So we're giving $150,000 to...
And what about all the Americans who need homes?
Well,
by the
also,
way?
yeah.
My kids.
It's insane because that idea...
Right? And my kids shouldn't be getting that from the government, right? And they have good jobs and stuff, but they can't afford a home. You have a whole generation of American kids, the first generation in history, who cannot afford a home, and that's going to destroy this country.
What it seems like, it's more nefarious because it seems like if whoever's applying for that $150,000, right? It's an immigrant, right? They can get it, $150,000 and get a home, and now they buy a home, and I'm sure that's probably tracked somewhere. What are the chances that like that home goes into foreclosure and some rich billionaire just buys it for pennies on the dollar? It's almost like that's what the intention behind that is. Now we get more real estate for the rich people.
For BlackRock.
So it's like, if it's so, because I look at it all and I'm like, I'm reading it, I'm like, this is so obvious. How come people are being like, yeah, we still want that person who's going to allow all this dog shit to happen and the American people. I don't understand how people don't see it.
Yeah, by the way, it's ironic that California passed that law because California has the highest homeless rate of any state in the country. In fact, 50% of the homeless in America are in the state of California. And these are people. A lot of times, you pass homeless people and say, "Well, they're drug addicts, or or they have mental health issues." But there's been all kinds of studies done here in California on the homeless, and the major correlation has nothing to do with drug addiction or mental illness. It is the price of housing. That people cannot afford homes. And they're in a rental, and they have 2 flat tires on their car, and they cannot put their hands on the rent, and they cannot, they can't repair their car. They can't get to work. They lose their job. They lose their home, and now they're out on the street just because they had a little bit of bad luck. They had an engine light come on, and more than 50% of the people in our country can't put their hands on $500 if they have an emergency. And if you're in that cohort and the engine light comes on in your car, it is the apocalypse because you're going to be on the street. And that's what happened. The correlation, you look at the place where there's homelessness in our country, and it's always places where there's high housing costs. California has the highest housing costs, and that's why we have the biggest homeless rate in this state. So if you're going to buy homes from people, how about the American homeless? They let's get these people back in their homes. They're people who already who are already here. We don't need to be bringing people in and buying them homes. It's crazy.
But I hear it, and I'm just like, how is this? How are people not like, this is clearly a massive issue, but people like celebrate it, or like clearly some side believes that it's a good thing. Like this just doesn't make sense. It's like, what about the veterans that need homes? Like people who died for the country, people who fought for this country. It's like, how are we? I'll never understand it. And then it just seems so weird. And then we just talk about like what I said earlier about the censorship. Is like, is it so that we can never have this conversation about it, and they just keep on keeping on?
Pretty much.
It's just so strange. I don't get it, and I don't get how people don't see it.
I think it's a lot of people just don't want to admit that there's like an evil at the top. I think too.
This week in Brazil, we're seeing this emergence of totalitarianism in all the Western democracies now, and since COVID particularly. In Brazil this week, they banned Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay, this is insane. This was one of the model democracies in Latin America, and they're banning free speech. And the European community, they told the European commissioner, this guy, Thierry Breton, 2 weeks ago, told Elon Musk that if you interview President Trump live on Twitter Spaces, on X Spaces, I guess they call it X Spaces now, that we are going to prosecute you. And we are going to prosecute you for penalties of 6% of the value of your company if you talk to a former president of the United States in a live interview, a guy who is the nominee of one of our 2 major political parties. So, and then France arrests Pavlo Durov, who is the founder of Telegram.
Yeah.
He stops in the country for a fuel stop, and he's dragged off his plane into prison. Or what? They already have the Europe, free speech doesn't exist in Europe anymore. They're directly, openly censoring content on the internet. They're penalizing people they're putting people in jail.
Yeah.
In England, who post things on the internet that are critical of public policies. And France, by the way, has as robust a commitment to free speech as the United States has. France passed all these laws in 1789 during the French Revolution, guaranteeing free speech to French citizens, and then they had another group of laws they passed in the 1880s doing the same thing. And they love free speech as much as we do, and now it doesn't exist anymore. And so they're doing in our country, we have a presidential candidate for the Democratic Party who does not believe in free speech.
Yeah.
Her vice president also has made very, very similar statements saying that there is the First Amendment. Here's what he said: the First Amendment does not protect misinformation or disinformation. Well, guess what?
That's
It
the
does.
scariest statement you can make.
It does. It protects. The First Amendment protects lies. It protects. You're allowed to lie, and that is protected by the First Amendment. The First Amendment was passed, was put there to protect all speech, and particularly speech that nobody wants to hear, right? All the inconvenient speech, the embarrassing speech, the disinformation, the misinformation, the lies, they're all protected by the First Amendment. Because everybody knows that if the government takes the job of telling us what is true and what's not true, all we're going to get is propaganda. And they're going to control it, and then we're all screwed. So, and the fact that they don't know that there's never been a time in history when the good guys have been the guys who have been censoring speech. We all know that when somebody starts censoring speech, they're already they're already sliding down the slippery slope of totalitarianism. A government that can censor its critics has a license for every atrocity. And, we saw what they did during COVID, where as soon as they censored free speech, they then went after religion. They went after, they closed every church in our country for a year with no scientific citation, no public hearing. They then went after freedom of assembly. They made us social distance without any scientific basis for that. They then went after property rights. They closed all of our businesses with no due process, no just compensation. They then went after jury trials. The Seventh Amendment says no American shall be denied the right of a trial before a jury of his peers in cases or controversies exceeding $25. That's all it says. There's no pandemic exception. And yet they shut down jury trials for any corporation that was engaged in a countermeasure, no matter how negligent they were, no matter how many people they killed or injured, no matter how reckless they were, no matter how grievous your injury, you could not sue that company. It's crazy.
I feel like this is do you think this is the tipping point for America? Like, I feel like this is the most important election in U.S. history. Do you feel like that?
I do, and I think we've said that about every election up till now, and I think it was probably true. But this is the most important because, like you say, we're at an inflection point now because of the rise of totalitarianism globally and the capacity for totalitarian elements to exercise utter, total, comprehensive control of every aspect of human behavior because of the emergence of these new technologies like AI, which is going to give the intelligence agencies the capacity to distort our reality, to control, to surveil us at levels that have, it's been the ambition of every totalitarian regime in the history of mankind to control every aspect of human behavior, our religious beliefs, our interactions with each other, our transactions, our movements, our sexual, choices, whatever. None of them have ever been able to do that because you could always, get under the radar. But now, with AI, with facial recognition systems everywhere, with these, we've given now permits to 415,000 low-altitude satellites. Bill Gates said his 60,000 satellites can look at every square inch of the Earth 24 hours a day. Oh, you're not going to be able to hide. You can't hide in your home. They have technology that can look through walls. They can find you in a forest. There's no way to hide from them anymore. And then they have the capacity now to warp and distort and dictate our realities, and to control us through AI technologies that can do predictive behavior.
Do you think we're just even if for example Trump wins and fights back against some of that, right? Do you think at some point, regardless, it's going to be a reality that it's because it seems like someone comes in, someone else is going to come in eventually. It's, you know, every 4 years thing. It's like, are we just going to end up in the same situation regardless?
I think if we have the right people in office, we can change it. And, you know, AI can actually democratize us. You know, the same way we were told that the internet was going to democratize us, and it turned out to be this tool for totalitarian control, right? It was going to democratize the spread of information and the access to information. It had the capacity to do that. I think AI has even a greater capacity to actually democratize us, to make government more transparent, to make it more responsive, to make it more efficient, and to make it the servant of people. But it also has the capacity to turn us all into slaves. And, you know, Elon Musk said it the best. He said, first, it's going to steal our jobs, then it's going to kill us. And I think it has that what he was saying is not hyperbole, that it is true.
That's
And
how do you?
if
What's the timeline?
If we elect useful idiots and sock puppets to be president of the United States, the people who are control them are the same people who are going to be controlling AI and its development.
Let's go, Skynet.
Yeah, Skynet.
Exactly. Terminator's coming, dude. I feel like that's the 30 years down
This
the
world
line.
is getting scary.
If that much.
Another thing I want to talk about, I feel the whole "Make America Healthy Again." Your speech when you came out and endorsed Trump was like electric, by the way, too. I think you
Thanks.
you added so much to the Trump campaign because you're just hitting a totally different spectrum of ideas with like "Make America Healthy," and it's just like, could you tell us about like what's behind that and the whole corruption with the food industry?
Yeah, I
Love
mean,
it, by the way.
oh, well,
100%.
thanks. You know, I've been working on this issue for 19 years because I see this chronic disease epidemic. We have, I mean, kids are sick today. I don't know why I notice it and other people don't, but, you know, maybe it's because I had 11 siblings, brothers and sisters, and I had about 70 first cousins, and so and then I have 7 of my own kids.
Damn.
And I know what children are supposed to look like, and what I see today, they're all damaged. These
A lot of them, right?
I think almost all of them are
Have you seen
damaged.
Big Justice and the Rizzler?
What?
Have you seen Big Justice and the Rizzler
No.
on TikTok? Those kids, Stein
Costco
guys.
guys?
I gotta-
Costco guys.
The Costco guys.
No, I got to go watch
Okay,
it.
yeah.
What do you mean though when you say
They're
that?
eating chicken
Damaged
bakes and
how?
shit.
Well, there's categories of
diseases
diseases
everywhere.
that I never saw as a kid. They just weren't, you know, they weren't around. The major categories, of course, are obesity. And obesity is, you know, when I was a kid, I think, you know, maybe 8 or 9% of Americans were obese, and now 77% are.
I thought the solution was Ozempic though.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's the thing, is that, you know, the most valuable asset in America right now is a sick child. I think Ozempic costs, is it $1,500 a week or
You're asking the wrong
$1,500 a
guy.
month? Yeah.
Maybe a couple people in the room might know, but I know.
Yeah, it depends.
Anyway, it's a lot of money. And
Well, it just seems like it's another derivative of like that military-industrial complex. It's just the pharmaceutical industry.
right, and it's shifting wealth upward,
Yeah.
and it's poisoning us. They have the food industry poisoning us on one hand and making us obese. Americans didn't suddenly become lazy and gluttonous. They, you know, we're being mass poisoned,
Yeah.
right? And it's obesity, then it's 3 other major categories: neurological diseases, ADD, ADHD. These are all things that I never heard of as a kid. Okay, ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, tics, Tourette syndrome, narcolepsy, ASD, autism. Autism rates when I was a kid were 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 1,500, depending on what study. Today, 1 in every 34 American kids is diagnosed with an autism disorder, and in California, 1 in every 22 kids. That's one category. Neurological, autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Crohn's disease, all of these, and then diabetes, which is the biggest. When I was a kid, a typical pediatrician would see 1 case of diabetes in his lifetime. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. 1 out of 3, 30%. Wow. What happened? It's now costing us more than our military budget. mitochondrial disorders. And we're, on the other end, another mitochondrial disorder is Alzheimer's disease, which is now called type 3 diabetes. It's all being caused by the same thing, poison food. We know what's causing it. It's poison food. It's all the, it's all the seed oils and the ultra processed food, processed sugars, and flours, and all this stuff that's in. We have 1,000 ingredients in our foods that are illegal in Europe. Okay, and we're the only country that allows this stuff. And then the last category is allergic diseases, which are like peanut allergy. Did I ever know anybody with a peanut allergy? No, I never heard of it. Nobody in my generation ever heard of it. And now it's every classroom. Why do 5 of my 7 kids have allergies, right? None of my siblings did. I didn't know a single person in my generation who had it. And so all of that, and then eczema and all these other asthma, all these other allergic diseases that exploded. And Congress actually said to EPA, tell us what year the autism epidemic began. And EPA came back and said it's a red line, 1989. That's when it changed. That was the change year. And if you look at all of these diseases, it was all around the same timeline. Suddenly in 1989, they all exploded. And so you look at what happened in 1989, and it was the beginning of really this cascade of processed foods that we started eating. And, also the vaccine schedule changed. We went from 3 vaccines to 72 vaccines. And that's part of the issue. But it's mainly, we're just mass poisoning. Our kids are now swimming around in a toxic soup. And it's costing us, the cost of chronic disease when my uncle was president was 0. There were no medicines for it. It essentially did not exist. And it was so rare as to, effectively not exist. And today it's costing us $4.3 trillion. And nobody else has this like us, right? There's some countries that are starting to climb. But during COVID, we had the highest body count from COVID in the world. So we had 16% of the COVID deaths in this country. We only have 4.2% of the world's population. So we had by far the worst record of any country in the world. And it's impossible to understand why people are getting awards in this country for managing COVID, because they did literally worse than anybody on earth. And CDC says, well, it's not our fault. The problem is Americans are so sick. And CDC, right? CDC says the average American who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic disease. COVID wasn't killing healthy kids. It was killing injured people. It was killing people who were already, extraordinarily damaged. They had asthma, they had obesity, they had, diabetes, and one other disease. And we died because nobody else has anything like this. And, so Make America Healthy Again is about addressing what's causing it and eliminating those causes. And, I know how to do that.
So how are these departments corrupt? They're purposely, what's their motivation for purposely putting the bad stuff in the food?
The U.S.
It's cheaper, right?
That's what,
Yeah, FDA is utterly corrupt because it gets 75% of its budget from pharmaceutical companies. So it's not working for the American people. It's working for pharma. NIH is corrupt. NIH is a scientific research organization. And when I was a kid, it was the gold standard scientific research organization on earth. Everybody looked to NIH for the best scientific research. Nobody else in the world had anything like it. There's a lot of nations that just say in their constitution or in their laws, whatever NIH says is what we're going to do, because everybody trusted it so much around the world. And in 1980, Congress passed an act called the Bayh-Dole Act. And that act said that if you work at NIH and you work on a new drug, developing a new drug, you get to keep royalties from that drug. And that NIH gets to keep royalties. So I'll give you an idea what that means. The Moderna vaccine was developed by NIH scientists, and 50% of that vaccine is owned by NIH. So NIH itself is making tens of billions of dollars on that. And then there are 6 individuals at NIH who are chosen by Anthony Fauci who get to pocket $150,000 a year forever, not just for their lives, but their children, their children's children. As long as mRNA platforms on the market, they're making money. These are the individuals that are supposed to be looking for problems with the product and saying, you can't do it. But they're paying for their mortgages and their kids' education and their boats and their alimony from that vaccine. So how vigilant do you think they're going to be in telling the American public if they find a problem with it? How vigilant do you think they're going to be about looking for problems? They're not. And that, is the problem, is that they wanted us to use that product, and they are making lots of money on that product. And this is true for now. Most of the product, the new drugs that are approved and licensed by FDA, came out of NIH researchers.
Yeah.
No, NIH is no longer a scientific research organization. They're a drug development incubator for the pharmaceutical industry. And it's all corrupt. These are perverse incentives that, we need to end. They need to be looking at and saying to us, instead of spending, they have $42 billion budget. They distribute that money to 56,000 scientists at universities all over our country to study scientific disease. But what they're doing now is they're getting those scientists to develop new drugs that they can collect royalties on. And what I would do in there is I'd go in and say, wait a minute, we're not going to do that anymore. What we're going to do now is we're going to figure out why we have the highest autism rates in the world.
But how are you going to win that battle with all the money you just explained and all the people
Well,
behind it?
if I were running an NIH or if I were running HHS, I can change everything.
Yeah.
I can just say we're not going to do that anymore. And
But do you think a lot of people are going to support that?
I don't need anybody to support it, because if
Yeah.
I was running it, I would just tell them what to do.
Is it that simple?
Does it
What? It
Is
is
it that
that simple. Yeah. If you and by the way, I know a lot of the individuals in these organizations, these agencies who have to be moved or corrupt or crooked. I understand the perverse incentives that need to be unwound, that put corporate capture on steroids. If you're the head of the agency and you're fearless,
Yeah.
you can do it. If you're willing to take the heat.
Right.
Most of them aren't. And usually the guys who are running NIH are pharmaceutical reps. They don't want to rock the boat.
So taking the heat, let's talk about that a little bit. Obviously, like the assassination attempt on Trump, the historical assassinations as well. You don't think that that's something that those people would be willing to go towards if they feel like that's going to be changed? Because it just seems like
I think there's trillions of dollars at stake, and that, anything is possible, and they're not good people.
yeah.
Do you ever get scared?
I don't get scared because that's not the way my mind functions. So, but, I also don't, I take precautions. I don't discount the possibility that somebody would want to, commit violence.
What do you think was there any like conspiracy behind the Trump assassination? You think like that? Or you think...
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've read some of the analysis on the there's a couple of scholars who are kind of scholarly people who look at it, and I read it with interest, but I don't know enough about it to really make those kind of assessments. I put a lot of study into my father's assassination and my uncle's assassination, and I know a lot about those, but I just don't have any information about about what happened with Trump. But I think there's a lot of questions that everybody asks about how that happened.
Yeah.
It seems like
You know,
people,
I had a security detail, and we were watching it in real time. And they were saying, you know, we would never put you in that situation without having drones in the air and without having people on every building. And they said, like when we were in Philadelphia, and I was in a situation where they didn't like, but they said, we can put people on these buildings. We can just hire $18 an hour security guards and put them on every building within rifle shot of the site. And that's what we would do in that kind of situation, even if we, you know, had no cooperation from local law enforcement. So there's a lot of questions about what happened in that situation that I think anybody's going to ask. And I think it is, you know, President Trump has said that he's going to create a commission to look at those issues. And I think, you know, that's a good thing. We should look at all these questions that, you know, people ask.
Because you said that earlier too, like you're scared Kamala won't have the guts to stick up to the military-industrial complex. I know,
or
like
the intelligence apparatus, which is I'm more frightened
like
of.
is that like it seems like those are the big no-nos. Like anyone that speaks out about Big Pharma, or even like your uncle too. Like I know he was very like standing up to the military-industrial complex. Like it just seems like they're not going to let that happen, right?
Yeah, I think that they will be very, very resistant to it.
I thought it was funny, that whole situation, how Democrats call themselves the party of joy, and then you have their biggest endorsers saying, oh, you should have got him. Like Jack Black, for instance, saying, next time, make sure you get him. All that.
Insane.
But people
That
are
sucks
making
because
jokes
I loved
like
Jack
that.
Black before.
Yeah.
when I was
Yeah,
growing
it's
up
just
too.
like,
Yeah, that seems very.
it just seems insane to say that.
Yeah.
No matter
that
what, like no
situation.
matter what you believe, it's like what are we doing?
Yeah, and
because that's
no
the
matter-
least from democracies. Yeah, that guy should have died who's running for presidency.
Yeah.
But I'm Democratic.
They're the party of joy,
Like,
bro.
oh, what the? You can't even make that make
I
sense.
want to ask you about going back to Kamala. It seems like Trump, every time you see something about her, she just worsens her case. Like anytime I open my phone, anything she does, people talk about her changing her accents where she is. There's a video of her getting out of a car and with her headphones in, avoiding the press. I don't know if you saw that as well.
No.
But it just seems like for Trump, it's like he should just almost play the silent game and let her just continue to worsen her case. Like, does he really even need to do much at this point?
I don't know. I mean, I think I looked at Nate Silver today. You know, Nate Silver he aggregates. He's kind of the most respected pollster, and he aggregates all of the polls and weights them. And he has a very good track record, and he gives now Trump a 70% chance of winning. And I think that was up from, I think he was like 48% right before the convention, right before, you know, my endorsement.
Your endorsement was huge.
Yeah.
And I think that helped him.
100%.
You know, the other thing that's
It's huge because like it's kind of cool because like Trump doesn't really speak on environmental type issues or like make America healthy type issues. So it's so cool to see. Yeah, it's like you guys joined forces. I was like Batman and Spider-Man, like when you walked
Avengers,
out there,
yeah.
like. But it's cool. It's cool that
With the Justice League.
I think we need more of that too. Yeah, like and then Tulsi Gabbard too. It's kind of just like, and I like how he's potentially bringing Elon in to help with stuff like. It's cool how there's a bunch of smart minds now teaming up and, speaking on different issues and tackling different things. That's what and I'm just scared too. I feel like if Trump doesn't win, like the World War III shit just scares me.
Yeah, that really
That's
scares
just
me
like
too.
seeing everything going on. I saw China said that, didn't President Xi say that like by 2027, like he's going to take back Taiwan? Like he said that point blank.
I mean, I think that I don't think that China wants to have a hot war with us,
No.
and Russia doesn't either. But we're doing everything we can to get them into a hot war.
Did you see Putin endorse Harris?
Yeah, that was funny.
Pretty funny. It was pretty funny. Really funny. He's like, yeah, let's keep him weak. Let's keep him censored.
Do you have any opinion on like what's been going on with aviation and how we have like Boeing has the rocket, 2 astronauts in space?
I don't know anything about that.
No,
Oh, what's your theory?
the DEI, stuff like that. Just they're hiring people that aren't capable to be in that position. Because you're seeing there's been plane crashes, close calls of planes colliding. It's just been very bizarre.
That's frightening.
Yeah, tires
plane every
exploding.
day.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
What about the fentanyl problem in the United States and the opioid addiction? Do you think there's anything that is ever going to fix that or change that? It's just another pharmacy problem, you know? It's like,
I mean, fentanyl is not really a pharmaceutical now. It's now, an illegal drug that's coming in from labs in Mexico and China, et cetera. It's hard to prevent it, even if you build a wall, because you could, the fentanyl is so efficient that, I think it's 200 times as powerful by weight as opioids. So you could smuggle enough fentanyl in to kill everybody in Los Angeles, like, in a briefcase. And so it's hard to block it from coming across. But I mean, the real issue is why, we lost 106,000 kids last year to overdoses. Most of that was fentanyl.
yeah.
And why is this generation of kids, so utterly hopeless and alienated and dispossessed and, and just despairing about their future and unconnected to communities? And, how do we really repair that? Because other countries are not, looking at this level of addiction and despair. And we have and a lot of it is linked to the health crisis, the chronic disease and the hopelessness that comes from that, and the damage these pharmaceutical. I mean, my daughter-in-law Amaryllis, who was a former CIA agent, she was in the clandestine services for her career, and she now runs my campaign, but she has 3 kids, and she was looking through her, because of what we're spending so much time talking about this now, she was looking through her cabinet for red dye, the red dye. There's study after study that shows that red dye causes ADHD.
Like the red 40, whatever that stuff is. Red 40 Lake.
Forgot, is it red dye number 6 or number 40?
There's a bunch of different ones for it.
But I think a lot of them have problems, but there's a couple of them that are really absolutely linked in the scientific literature, all these behavioral problems in kids.
I was going to buy some gum and it said red 40 Lake, and I was like, I'm not going to have that gum.
That's not a true story.
I swear to God,
You
today
checked
when
the
I
ingredients in
came,
the gum
I
you were gonna
swear
buy.
to God, I was
That's
looking
what
at
she was
trying it.
saying.
He's
too.
saying that because you're here. Just so
No,
you know.
bro,
This is the most
literally,
bullshit I've ever
I
heard.
left
You're
my
not
gym.
checking ingredients on
No, bro.
extra
Bro,
bro.
you could check the damn the surveillance, bro. Ask the feds. They
Okay.
probably watched me do it.
Bill Gates saw you do it.
He
for
watched
sure.
straight through the building and
Yeah,
saw me
okay,
do it. I
gum-
looked
gum
at it.
ingredient guy.
I swear to God, it said red 40 Lake, and I was like, I don't even. What the fuck is that?
Yeah. No, I know. Well, my daughter-in-law told me she found it in almost in all these products, like her kids' toothpaste and all of this. And she was saying, I was looking at the literature, and they were taking kids who were on it, and then kids who were not on it, and using placebo-controlled trials, and the difference between them was so dramatic and immediate. As soon as you take it away, they get better. And yet it's in everything.
Yeah.
And that's why I stopped eating this stuff, because it looks like maybe there's some in here, but this is all natural, right?
Oh yeah, that's got
Yeah,
the
there's
best
no red
ingredients.
eye, no seed oils.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude,
I saw a
it's-
clip. I saw a clip of you at you were at Muscle Beach recently, on the bench press.
At Venice, yeah.
Yeah, Venice. Brad wanted to ask, what's your PR on?
Yeah,
bench
I'm
press?
actually really curious.
I know I don't lift heavy. I lift really light.
What was
because
your all-time PR? Bench press.
I had like 2 plates on each side.
225.
Nice.
Yeah, Jim Bro.
Serious
certified.
Jim Bro.
Jim Bro
Serious
certified.
Jim Bro.
But I
love it.
I had both my shoulders done, and I have fake knees, I have fake hips, I have titanium everywhere, including my throat. So now I do a lot of reps.
Yeah, that's good.
I do like 12 reps, my first set to exhaustion. That's what I try to do.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
how much was your best squat ever? Sorry, it's Jim Bro.
Oh, I don't know. I don't do squats. I do leg press, and I do.
Okay.
I typically, until I had my hips done, I was doing 8 plates on both sides of the
Okay.
leg press.
That's a lot, right? 8 plates on each side.
Yeah, it's
more
a good
than
amount.
you.
I mean, it's definitely not more.
You
than
don't
me.
hit
It's
legs.
definitely
I
not
think
more
I
than
think
me.
it's about 800.
He doesn't really hit
I think
legs.
it's
No,
about
I
800.
squat a lot more. Come on, Jesus.
Okay.
What?
No, he's trying to undermine me. It's fine. I'm used to Steiny.
One last question. I know you got to go, but what would your like dream position, or how would you like to like contribute if Trump wins, like in terms of like a cabinet position, or like what would you like your role to be in an ideal situation?
Well, right now they've asked me to be on the transition team, which I think is really good, because that allows me to have input on all of the people who are picked, and ultimately policy is personnel. So it's going to be, the people who are picked on the, in the USDA, the Department of Agriculture.
So transition team is like you're helping pick the heads of
and
each.
there's 20 of us on the team, and Tulsi's on there too.
She's awesome, man.
She's on the team too.
We need you for the health stuff.
Yeah.
We need you there.
I don't know exactly what my function will be in there, but I'll do something with public health.
Yeah, you're a massive asset to Trump. This was huge.
Yeah. We really appreciate you coming.
And
on,
then
man.
you got to run in 2028.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will you? Will you?
I don't know what I'm going to do.
No, you got
4
to,
years
bro.
from now. Okay.
You have to. We need the health thing's so important because everything starts from that. So
We're helping out. We're helping out Team Trump. They have a website, sendthevote.com, that we're helping. Like
good.
our audience is like 18 to 30. So sendthevote.com if you guys want to register to vote. RFK on the
That's my
transition team.
demographic, 18 to 30.
Yeah.
If you look at my, I was beating both Trump and Biden with people under 35. And that's, we got to fix that
Does
generation.
that surprise you though?
No, it doesn't, because that's my kids' generation. I see what they're doing, what's happening to them. I see how unfair, how screwed they're getting, where they're the ones who are going to pay the $35 trillion debt.
Yeah.
My kids went to the best schools. They have great jobs, and none of them can afford a home. And, and their friends are not going, their friends are still living at home with their parents. And these are kids from Harvard and Stanford.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'm thinking about kids, who don't have that or who don't have any college education, and how lost this generation is, how just abandoned they've been by our generation. And then they've all been poisoned.
Right.
Oh, all of these kids coming up to me. I did, when I was campaigning actively, and I still do this, I did, we'd have 1,200, 1,500 people every night. And I did a selfie with everybody at the end. But we moved people really quick through the selfie line. But I got to talk to people, and all these kids were coming up to me and saying, "Yeah, I've got an autoimmune disease. I've got, and it was really just shocking and and troubling. I had a girl come up to me one night in Pennsylvania. And she was, maybe 22 years old, and she said,
Okay, now we're getting into it.
Well,
she
This is
said,
the Full Send podcast
She said,
part.
I violated house arrest to come see you tonight, and then she
Okay.
pulled up her
Oh my God.
cuff, and she had a
ankle monitor.
an ankle monitor on, and she said, "I'm going to get in a lot of trouble." And then she said, "Are you going to legalize cannabis?" I said, "Is that why you got that thing on?" She went like, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah."
What
I'm
state
gonna
was
do
that in?
It was in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
That's hilarious.
So if we can get people healthy, jacked, the world will be a better place. huh?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what we need. Because then people will be sharper. They'll be able to spot the bullshit and
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah, and they're not gonna allow themselves to be slaves.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
If they feel like they're in control of their lives and they have hope for the future.
Yeah. I'm glad you're here, man.
RFK
I
is
hope
the
that
man.
you-
Thank you, man. We
I
appreciate
think
Yeah,
the
brother,
swamp.
thank you so
the
much.
swamp just must have nightmares about you.
Yeah. They want him. They
You're a
want him
swamp
fucking
vacuum.
unhealthy.
We're
and
always
dumb.
down to get a lift in too. If you
Yeah,
need.
I would love to work out with you. That'd be dope.
Where do you guys work out?
Brad's gym.
I have a gym. It's in
Oh,
Encino.
you
It's
have a
called.
zoo, right?
It's called. Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah,
didn't
because
do
you
that.
were they
Fuck
stayed
that.
open during the pandemic. Right?
God.
Yeah, I kept it open during the pandemic.
Well, hold
No,
on.
I have a lot of friends who went down there during the pandemic because
Yeah.
you weren't making people wear masks. Right?
No, I had to go to court like 9 times. I didn't do
Yeah.
anything. I said, "What is this?"
RFK.
We should smack like a boys' arm day
That'd be
next
so
few
cool.
days.
Yeah, it's called Zoo Culture. It's in Encino.
It's an Encino.
Yes.
Just be aware.
But isn't there one here too?
No, so there is one in Woodland Hills, the original one that I kept open, and I moved it to a bigger location in Encino, right there on Ventura.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd love to. That'd be so
Oh,
fun.
I'd love to come down
I
there.
mean, be prepared for a little expensive day.
Maybe a
pass,
little
but-
Sunday arm day.
Because I had hit you up, your team, to do an interview, and like a time ago, and someone changed positions.
Can he get a free day pass?
No, $60. No, yeah, of course, How
much is a day pass?
60.
It is. Wow.
Yeah.
Depends who it is, but yeah.
Yeah.
Inflation, right?
How did you?
Brad,
you know how
Brad
expensive
blames
that bitch is?
How
inflation.
does your gym floor compare to Gold's?
You would love my gym.
Yeah, his gym
It's
is
a dope
amazing.
gym. It's a
love
dope
it.
Great gym.
It's a real gym. You'd love it.
Yeah.
Like I'd love to.
I mean,
I
I
would love
love
to do that.
Gold's. That place is
I'm going to Gold's after this. Never been.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll go with you.
Let's do it.
what?
I'm gonna go. I'm
Go
gonna
to
go train
Gold-
with you. I'm gonna go to
Gold's
Gold's
right
after
now.
this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'd go over with you, but I already went.
What time do you go early? Probably.
I go at. I shouldn't say it because of security. But
Yeah, don't
I'll,
We'll cut it. We'll cut it out.
Don't say.
I'll tell you afterwards.
Yeah.
You hit the cold plunge or no?
I have a cold plunge at my house.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you believe in a lot of that, like the cold plunge sauna, red light stuff?
I don't know. I believe it because on the red light sauna, I've read a lot of literature. The cold plunge, I don't know. I know people swear on it. I don't know how strong the science is on it, and it's really it's painful to get in there. I have a son who hasn't taken a warm shower in a year. And
Yo,
he
he's a
does-
savage. I love
does
that
cold
guy.
plunge every day, and he's
See, I
Damn.
hate cold showers, but I love the cold plunge.
It's more so just doing the thing you don't want to do. Like it's a good thing for your brain. It's a good thing
The
for
mental
your body.
that is absolutely true.
That's just it.
That's discipline.
Yeah.
That discipline.
That alone, I think is worth it.
Yeah.
I got a cold plunge at the gym too. If you want to come by.
You go every day.
Yeah, I have one. I have two. I have a hot and a cold at my house, and I have a cold plunge.
you have
at
a cold
the gym.
plunge at the gym now?
You have
Yeah,
a
it's
hot.
cold.
Lit.
What do you mean?
So I have
like
two
that.
cold. I have two cold tubs, and one is hot all the time, and one is cold. So I go back and forth, like contrast.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
We go to the gym
Little
every day
contrast
too, but we're
there, Perry?
natural.
You,
We go to the gym too. We're natural, so that's probably why you didn't be able to tell that we go to the gym as well. Just so you know. Just saying. All right.
It's our moment. Can we just have our moment?
Yeah, yeah.
Can I
You
just have
had
a
your
moment?
moment. You knew your gym.
Come on.
All right. We good?
All right, well, this is amazing. We appreciate you coming.
Okay, thank you, man.
thanks.
Learned
This
a
is
lot.
You're awesome, man. Thank you.
thank you.
That was sick.
Thank you so much.
Amazing. Amazing.
They want you to come to the gym tomorrow.
Sunday morning
I'll
lift.
come if I can't come this weekend. I'll come another time. Okay.
Yeah, man.
We'll see you guys.
All right, see ya.
Thank you.
Drop a thumbs up. That was fire. Straight up.